Welcome to the Bowers Museum. I'm Lynn Liu, and I will be guiding you through a virtual highlights tour of Gemstone Carvings, the masterworks of Harold Van Pelt. Of course, this will provide just a glimpse into the treasure trove that makes up this exhibition, and we hope you'll join us soon on site to fully immerse yourself in the wonder of this collection. While you're here, you'll also discover 8 other permanent collection galleries and our current featured exhibitions, which are created in partnership with world-class institutions from around the globe. Visit bowers.org for tickets and more information to start planning your trip today. Stone carving, or lapidary, dates far back into mankind's prehistory. 5,000 years ago, Chinese craftspeople carved jade to create containers and the effigies of mythical animals. Beginning a few hundred years before the Common Era, the great classical civilizations of Europe engraved seals and cameos. In more recent times, Carl Fabergé's eggs, some of which were carved from solid stone, have achieved enduring fame. Traditional jade lapidary is still widely practiced in China, but in the West there is relatively little stone carving outside of major European centers like Eder Oberstein in Germany. In the United States, most contemporary gem carving is associated with jewelry production rather than the creation of traditional sculptural or functional pieces. Harold Van Pelt, a hobbyist who does not sell his work, is among the best of a relatively small group of American carvers who create pieces that rival or even exceed those made in Eder Oberstein. Graduating from the Brooks Institute of Photography in Santa Barbara in 1953, Harold Van Pelt and his partner in photography and life, Erica Van Pelt, made ends meet by photographing furniture. But Van Pelt's true passion was always gemstones. Whenever possible, he took jobs photographing gemstones, and quickly the pair earned a reputation as 2 of the most premier gemstone photographers in the world. This reputation opened doors for the Van Pelts when they visited Eder Oberstein in the 1960s, allowing them to get a first-hand look at their well-guarded techniques. Around this time, Van Pelt began to purchase agate nodules and quartz crystals at the Tucson, Arizona Gem and Minerals Show, and directly from mines in Brazil and Arkansas. It was not long after that he began modifying tools to work gemstones and practicing the skills he had been able to deduce from working in the gem carving industry. The very earliest were the agate cups. Over the 45 years of Van Pelt's carving career, he has created over 80 unique carvings, everything from multifaceted, fluted, and textured vases to candle holders influenced by Grecian columns. Eggs are a recurring subject in Van Pelt's work. Though many of us associate jeweled eggs with Fabergé, Van Pelt instead drew inspiration from the carvings in the Louvre, the Schatzkammer in Munich, and Kunsthistorische Museum in Vienna, the Museo del Prado, the Victoria and Albert Museum, and some of the best collections of European antiquities. As a result, his carvings tend to draw from classical inspirations. From a design standpoint, the 416 triangular facets on the egg are an impressive and time-consuming feat, but it has also been hollowed out so that its walls are only 3 millimeters thin. Here are the steps involved in carving a similar piece in this exhibition. A block of red crystal is purchased, and back in the studio, sawed to get a flat side. A metal piece called a dop is adhered with epoxy so that the block can be socketed into a rotatable tool. B. Strips are sawed off to achieve an approximate cylindrical profile. C. After the initial sawing, the rough profile is ground in by hand against the diamond-charged Herbine wheel to get a rough, semi-ovoid shape. D. Accurate profiling is accomplished using a 1/4 inch by 4 inch radius grinding wheel. E. The marks left by the profiling operation are ground out using an 8-inch, 220 mesh diamond wheel. Great care must be taken not to overgrind, as it is easy to ruin the shape of a piece. F. The facets are ground using a large home-designed machine with an 8-inch 100 mesh diamond disc. The diagrams on the wall show the positions and inclinations of the facets, which gradually decrease in size toward the tip of the egg. G. The facets are pre-polished on a lapping machine, which uses a slurry of 15-micron diamond compound and lubricant to achieve the clean surface of the finished egg. H. The final step is to hollow out the piece. The stone is turned around and a new dop is adhered, again with epoxy, so that the polished exterior can be attached to a lathe. The old dop is removed and the first drilling with a 3/4 inch core drill begins. It is important to use coolant during the step, or else the high heat of drilling can ruin a carving. This step is followed by 2 other core drillings, each of a larger diameter. I. The rough interior further expanded with a diamond wheel, while the egg itself is slowly rotated. J. Since this is just 1/2 of the final egg, an interlocking rim recess is machined before it is removed from the lathe. A series of felt wheels charged with cerium oxide provide the final polish. K. With the stone carving finished, Van Pelt sends out the piece to have metal workers add gold rings around the interlocking rims. And here is the finished piece as it appears in the exhibition. The nature of Van Pelt's work requires an intimate familiarity with the materials that he works with and their idiosyncratic characteristics. Van Pelt prefers quartz and agate, which is itself a microcrystalline variety of quartz. Both stones are harder than jade on the Mohs hardness scale and have varied colors and color patterns. When carving quartz, Van Pelt tends to use clear crystals, sometimes with inclusions like rutile or isoclacite. Due to how agate forms over time, its cross-sections tend to show concentric color bands. Moss agate, not a true agate because it lacks its concentric bands, forms in a largely similar way. Van Pelt uses the green veins running through moss agate to give his stoneworks a more organic appearance. Van Pelt enjoys experimenting with a vast array of different stones for his carvings. Here we see pieces made by chrysoprase. Amethyst, and even petrified wood. Though Van Pelt's carvings each demonstrate an incredible degree of skill, perhaps his most impressive works are those which are his most lifelike. Isaac, Harold Van Pelt's life-sized carved quartz skull, contains 2 articulated pieces and a jaw hinge that opens and closes. Having learned valuable skills by cracking the dome of a previous crystal skull he had spent over 100 hours working on, Van Pelt started anew with a 250-pound crystal and carved it down to a 52-pound block. After crafting the exterior shape of the skull, he spent several months carefully hollowing it out. The finished piece weighs only 6.5 pounds. In the late 19th century, crystal skull carvings became popular. Many people believe these were archaeological relics of the ancient Mayan and Aztec civilizations, despite the lack of any evidence that they were. Mystics and scholars alike began purchasing specimens, and world-class institutions, such as the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History, the Musée de Quai Branly in Paris, and the British Museum, put them on display. The carvings were actually the work of European craftsmen using modern tools, but it took years before scientists could discredit these so-called artifacts. Isaac is both an impressive display of Van Pelt's carving ability and an homage to this farcical chapter in the history of lapidary. Isaac is not the only carving that Van Pelt has created based on the human form. He has carved several sculptural replicas of his wife's hands and feet. Each of these traces the lines of her extremities, mapping every minute curve in remarkable detail. Looking closely, we see well-defined cuticles and distinct ridges at every knuckle. These pieces also demonstrate how Van Pelt uses natural inclusions in stone to his benefit. He selected the piece of quartz from which he carved the sculpture of Erica's foot, so that the main concentration of golden rutile appeared to be spreading from her sole. Van Pelt is quoted as saying that he was inspired to create these by ancient Greek sculptures, but more than anything, they seem to be love letters to a woman who was a lifelong supporter and collaborator for Van Pelt. We hope that you enjoyed our virtual tour of Gemstone Carvings, the masterworks of Harold Van Pelt. If you enjoyed this exhibition, please consider taking a deeper dive into the subject by visiting Bowers Museum in person, participating in the exhibition's virtual public tour led by our docent guild, or watching some of our featured lectures. All exhibition-related events can be found in the Bowers Museum's online events calendar at bowers.org. Thank you, as always, for your support.